Okay, I've been asked to make some videos about factoring trinomials with a lead coefficient other than 1. So there's a few different ways you can approach this. I will try and go through a few of them using different ones for different problems. So for this one, I've got number 1 from the homework, 2n squared plus 15n plus 7. What I know is that I'm going to be factoring it into something like this, and I know I'm going to have lead coefficients of each of these binomials that are going to multiply to make 2n. I also know I'm going to have n coefficients of each of these binomials that multiply to be 5. My inside product and my outside product are going to add up to 15n. Pardon me. So, one way I can approach this, since this one is all prime numbers, is a little bit of a guess and check approach. I know that unless I'm dealing with fractions, and none of these are going to deal with fractions in this packet, I can just say 2n times n and then figure out which one of these gets the 1 and which one gets a 7, since those are the factors of 7 as a prime number. So I know I need to add up to 15. If I put the 7 here, I'm going to have a 7n, and I'll have a 1 here. So, so I'll show you what we end up with. So, and there's a plus, of course. That's not a plus. That's a plus. And that gives me an inside product of 7n and an outside product of 2n. 7n and 2n are 9n. That doesn't give me what I want. So I immediately know I can just switch these up, and that should work. Now, this approach is probably it's the simplest guess and check approach. It's probably most useful when both your lead coefficient and your n coefficient are prime numbers, so you don't have a lot of extra factors to wrangle in your problem. So that's one way to deal with it. Let's take a look at number 2. And just going back, in arranging it, I knew that the 2n times n would get me my first term, because that's 2n squared. My 1 times 7 will get me my last term, and then my inside of 1n and my outside of 2n times 7, or 14n, gets me 1n plus 14n, which gets me 15n. All right, I'm going to take a look at the next one. In this one, I have prime factors on my first and last term, prime number coefficients on my first and last terms, but I'm going to try it a little bit differently. In this, I'm going to go ahead and multiply my first coefficient times my last coefficient. And if I multiply them, I get 7 times 7, and that equals 49. That is not equal here. I'm just doing some work here. So I'll put that down here. So 7 times 7 gets me 49. I know that I definitely know I'm going to have a 7D and a D. But okay, so I've got 49 here. So what I want to do is get a middle term that's 50D. And I'm going to have two products that add up to 50D. So what I need to do is I need to break 49 into two factors that add up to 50. All right, so 49, I know 7 times 7 are factors. Those don't add up to 50, but 1 times 49 also equals 49, and 1 plus 49 equals 50. So I know that my inside and outside are going to give me products of 1 and 49 if I want to get 50. So I now need to go about organizing this so I get one of those to be 49 and the other one to be 50. So right now I've got 7 here. If I've got 7 there, then I can get a 49 by putting a 7 here. I've used the 49, and now I can put a 1 here, and that'll give me a 1D, and that'll get me a 49D, and I'm in pretty good shape. And now I've got it factored. Okay. Now, number 3, I actually got some some email about. So let's take a look. So number 3, again, I have prime numbers as my lead in coefficient. So that does make some things a little easier. I'm going to do it the same way I just did it. I'm going to say 11 times 3. I'm multiplying my lead coefficient and my last coefficient because I'm going to ultimately be multiplying those in some arrangement of their factors. So that's going to equal 33. And I need 2 factors of 33 that add up to 14. Now, ultimately, it's negative 14, so they're going to be negative factors instead of the positive factors of 33. Negative times negative, remember, gets you a positive. So 1 and 33, and I've already got 11 and 33. So 1 and 33, 1 times 33 does equal 33, but 1 plus 33 equals 34, so that's no good. But 11 plus 3 equals 14. So I'm on the right track, but instead of 11 times 3, I want negative 11 times negative 3. So I want my inside or my outside, one or the other. So one of them, the inside and outside, needs to give me a negative 11. The other one needs to give me a negative 3. So I go up here, and I'm going to start factoring this one. So I'll start out with an 11W and a W. Okay. I need to get a negative 11. So if I make that 11 times my outside the negative 11 by saying W minus 1 there, because negative 1 times 11W will get me negative 11W. And then I can put my 3 here, and that's got to be negative 3 also, because then I've got negative 3W. My 11W times W gets me my lead term. My negative 3 times negative 1 gets a positive 3. My outside is negative 11W. My inside is negative 3W. And that gets me negative 14W, and I'm good. Pardon me. Pardon me for the coughs. I am a little under the weather today. So let me bold the answers on these. Okay. All right. The next one is a little more complicated because it doesn't have prime. It doesn't all prime coefficients. So 3 is prime. That's nice, but 10 is not. My middle term is a negative 17. So I need to come up with two products that add up to negative 17. So since these are positive, that means that I'm going to end up having products of negative numbers. So my factors are all going to be negative. But I'm going to start off. What I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to factor all of these. So I've got 3, and then 2, because I'm factoring 10 into 2 times 5. So I factored 3, 2, and 5. Now I want to rearrange these into into 2 products that add up to 17. I'm going to go ahead and make that negative. Okay, actually, no, I'm not going to do it that way. 2 of them have to be negative. So somewhere in here, I've got some negatives. I'll rearrange that once I've got my my final version. So right now, let's mix and match. If I do 3 times 2 plus 5, then I get 6 plus 5. And that doesn't help me because that's 11. If I do 2 times 5 plus 3, that gets me 10 plus 3, which is 13. But I am getting a little closer. So when I notice that that's getting me closer, then I know that probably I need one of these products to be a little bigger. So if I swap this 3 over here and make this 3 times 5, and each time I'm just using the same group of factors. Now I've got 15 plus 2, which is 17. So I've got what I need. Got that I need to have a 3 times 5 as either my inside or my outside, and I need a 2 times 1 for my other one. My either if 3 times 5 is my inside, then 2 times 1 has to be my outside. But I remember that my middle term is negative, so I'm going to have to make both of those products negative. So instead of this, somehow this has to be negative, and this has to be negative. So I get negative 15 plus negative 2 equals negative 17. So let's work it out. So let's say I want an outside product to get me negative 15. So I know that I'm getting a 3 from here, so I'll just say 3x. And I'm going to put a negative 5 here because that'll work to get me a negative 15x. And then I just have an x here because I need to get a 3x squared for my first product. And then over here, I'm going to put a negative 2 because then I get an inside product of negative 2x, an outside product of negative 15x, and that adds up to negative 17x. And additionally, I get a 3x squared for my first, which is good, and negative 2 times negative 5 gets me my positive 10. So I go back and I check to see, did it all work? Because it does matter where you put these. You could have switched x minus 5 and 3x minus 2, but I can't switch the negative 2 and the negative 5. I can't switch that around or else I'm getting a different middle term. I'm going to pause the video right now and upload it. I hope this part has been helpful. My next video, I'll also organize it in a solving by grouping approach.